Okay, so UFC 284 has just taken place, and I'm going to give my immediate reaction. Now, I've already released my reaction to the main card, so I'm following this up now with my reaction to the prelims. First thing I want to say was the place was half full to start things off, which was quite a rare thing to see. So usually when you get the opening fight on a prelims, they're kind of fighting in front of nobody. But I think pretty much half the people were there, so that was really interesting to me. It kind of showed how big the event was and how important it was to Australia, so I thought that was worth mentioning off the bat. Alright, so fight one was a fight between Zubaira Tukhugov and Elvis Brenner. Now, I've got a lot of problems with this one, which I'm going to get into. But despite moving up a weight class, Tukhugov failed to make weight, which is never a great sign. I called the fight for Tukhugov. I thought he was going to win it going into it. But I did say that Brenner was going to make it tough and that he would see it out to the bell. Like, Tukhugov was a very heavy favorite. And I called this correctly, but I ended up losing the pick, which I'm going to get into. This was a very, very strange one. Now, it was not a convincing performance by Tukhugov. He had a very tentative first round. It took a little while to get going. Brenner caught him with a few leg kicks, and he had the most significant moments, I felt. So with the damage-based scoring, he could have arguably won the first, but it was a really close round. Now, the second round was where Tukhugov really started to take over a little. He was finding a home for that really stiff left jab, and he was getting his timing down. He had some nice feints and landed some good shots. This, to me, was a clear 1-1. Now, the third round, Tukhugov controlled against the cage, landed decent strikes. I don't see how you can give that fight for that round for Brenner. Now, at the end of the day, Tukhugov didn't make weight, so fuck him, I guess. But somehow Brenner got his hand raised in a split decision. One of them was a 30-27. Now, this is a robbery in my view, no matter what way you look at it. It was hardly the worst I've seen, but it was a really terrible decision. I mean, Tukhugov closed at minus 250, like with 30 seconds left in the fight. He was the minus 250 favorite, which kind of says it all. And this didn't bode well as far as the way the judging might go for the rest of the night. I did say Brenner would get to the bell, and at the end of the day, Tukhugov was very underwhelming. He also missed weight, as I said, so kind of, yeah, that's never good. But yeah, so I started off 0-1, and it's the first time I've had a losing start on a card. But I mean, look at the surprise on both their faces. This was a robbery, and I feel like I should be one up. But never mind. Right. Okay, fight 2. Shane Young versus Bilder. I went with the underdog Bilder in this one, so let's get into it. Oh, by the way, another thing, there seemed to be like quite nice distances between the fights. There was no fucking about. It seemed to just be kind of one after the other most of the time, which I really like. A nice fight, fast-paced card. Now, the first few minutes of this one were quite uneventful. Neither men threw many strikes. Bilder did have, I'd argue, the more significant moments. He was catching leg shots, but he really sealed the round with a really nice, strong takedown. Picked up Young, dumped him on the ground, and he had some ground control time towards the end of the round. Softened him up with strikes. Young did manage to get to his feet right at the end of the round, but, the damage was done. I had it 10-9 Bilder. Now, unfortunately, I lost my feed and missed the entire second round. The live odds had Bilder up, and I did manage to rewatch some of it, and it was a much closer round. The third was also pretty close. I think Bilder shot a few takedowns that were stuffed, but he was having the more impactful moments. The damage done to Shane Young's nose, and based on the first fight robbery, perhaps this was an important factor here. I saw 2 clear rounds, which I felt were clearly Bilder's. I wasn't really too sure on round 2. But anyway, Bilder ended up getting the nod. And we have 2 underdogs starting the card out as winners. The first one was ridiculous, and I don't know how I'm going to let that go. But yeah, Young sucks. He's like an embarrassment to CKB, and he should be pretty much cut. But this took my record up to 1-1. Okay, then we moved on to Reed versus Loma Lookboonmee, who I mentioned in the build-up, I really like. I called Loma to win by decision, so let's see how this went. Now, this was pretty good for a women's fight. Loma softened her up with a really heavy leg kick. Now, this round kind of epitomized what I really hate about women's MMA in terms of how it scored differently to men's. Like, Loma looked really measured in there and did massive damage, causing bruising, even busting her nose at one point. She was tie clinching at the midpoint in the round and getting really nice knees in, as I predicted she would. Loma then got a takedown, which kind of surprised me, but she got instantly reversed and she was controlled on top for about 1:30. She has some real weaknesses there, and against the better girls in the division, I think she's going to struggle a little bit. She wasn't trying to frame up and get back to her feet, and she was basically stuck down there when she was there. So anyway, if this was a men's fight, Loma would have done enough to win the round. She did more damage, but predictably when the scorecards were read at the end, or checked at the end, she had lost all three. But maximum respect for how she came out in the second, because she worked the leg kicks first, slammed Reed down hard, immediately took the back, and then locked in a rear naked choke. And Reed tapped for the first time in her career. I've got a lot of respect for Loma for aggressively going for it. Really nice win. She got the submission, and that moved me to 2-0. Should be 3-0, and I'm not going to let that go. But never mind. Right. Next fight was between Jack Jenkins and Shainis. I called Jenkins in this one, and I was really confident, I might add. I felt like if Jenkins didn't win, it would have been a one and done for him in the UFC if you fucked this one up. Now, this one was actually a pretty fun fight. Jenkins started out massive knees in the clinch, just as I said he would. Shainis landed a filthy knee to the pills, which really pissed the crowd off. Jenkins was then going to calf kicks, which he's really good at, and they were doing really big damage. Then he got a really nice takedown. He starts going to work with leg and body shots. Hit a really filthy leg kick, which really hurt Shainis. And then Jenkins was kind of switching in between strikes really well. He was firing punches, then snapping leg kicks, and I think this really destabilized Shainis. Jenkins got a really nice jab going. Really nice round. Good distance control. And the crowd were getting hyped at this point. There was a little bit of a strange end to the round with an exchange of leg kicks and both of them posturing, but it was a clear Jenkins 1-0 round. Round 2 was where I was really impressed with Jenkins, though. He was really tremendous at mixing up strikes. He used traps to deceptively go to the head, then land leg kicks in between, and this was really destabilizing. Jenkins then landed a really nice trip at one point in the round, got some really nice control time on top. Shainis did manage to reverse at one point, which kind of surprised me, and I think that's going to be a problem. Like, against the better guys, Jenkins can't be letting that happen, but he did manage to power his way up. He was really mixing things up and showing a lot of diversity everywhere. Jenkins then got hit with a second nut shot, and this really pissed the crowd off. They went crazy. He wasn't penalized, which I kind of agree with. It did look accidental. Then, yeah, third round was more of the same. Jenkins picking shots, taking the back early. He locked in a triangle on the ground, and he looked really comfortable there. Shainis did really well to survive, but this was a clear 3-0. Jenkins has a really nice all-round game, and he should find some nice matchups at this weight class. I'd feel pretty safe betting on him going forward. He seems really tough and well-rounded. Got the UD win, nice performance, and yeah, this took me to 3-1. Okay, this one was a really... I picked Prado on this one, which was a very, very risky play. Guy's really young, he's only 20 years old and very inexperienced. He does have he was carrying an 11-0 record. I called this one pretty badly. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Prado started by showing some really nice movement and a really snappy head kick, but that was pretty much the best we saw of him in just that opening minute. This was a total mismatch. Mullarkey smartly took this to the ground, and it felt academic at that point. Prado apparently has a very decent submission game, but he looked pretty easy to control on the ground. It was a dominant round for Mullarkey in the first, and that pretty much followed the same pattern into the second and third. Prado did almost pull off a Hail Mary armbar at the end of the third, but he clearly was not ready for this moment. Didn't look like he belonged in there at this level, really. I expect what will happen with him. He'll get bounced back to the regionals to gain more experience. And at his age, we may see him again, but it probably won't be for a while. Having said that, I still don't trust Mullarkey, and I will not be picking him against, well, most fighters in the division going forward. He also did a really, really bitch call out. Again, the old Paddy Pimlet call out. Such a waste of mic time. Anyway, really bad call on this one, but I took a punt. This took me to 3-2. It was a very forgettable shit fight, and this got way more time than it really deserves from me. Right, next was Ross, who was lucky to even be getting his chance, and he fought Clayton Rodriguez. Now, I said this would be about a beatdown, and that's exactly how it went. This one was over really quickly, and predictably so. Rodriguez fucked him up, and there isn't much else to say on this one. Clayton blitzed him early, and Ross just shelled up, and just immediately shelled up. I mean, again, respect to anyone with the stones to get in there, but this was a terrible performance. Rodriguez realized he had him hurt, then just started playing around in there, landing spinning shots, and just overwhelmed him. It was an easy win, and Ross should have never been in there. Clearly not UFC caliber, no offense, mate. So that took me to 4-2. Rodriguez by KO. Lit him up. What else can I say? Easy fight. Right, now this was the tricky one for me, and it was the one I was the least confident about going into it. I did warn people to not bet on this one, and I think for the reasons I'm about to explain, that was the right call. So Culibao took on Bagdasaryan. Now, I took Bagdasaryan on this one, but I did expect it to be really close. Now, Bagdasaryan had a really strong first round in this one. Culibao wasn't really throwing anything. Bagdasaryan was very careful, avoiding strikes. Melsik nailed him at one point as well, really bloodying up his nose. The most significant thing was the spinning nut shot at the end of the round. Check the thumbnail on this one. It was a ball wobbler. He should have taken... Now, Culibao should have taken the full 5 minutes, but he clearly wanted to look like a hard nut in front of the crowd, so he ended up taking 2 minutes. But this was a clear Melsik round. Now, the second was pretty interesting. Melsik was clearly in control, and he looked like he was going to get a finish. He was stalking him, looking for the final shot. He was landing shots, controlling the cage. But then out of nowhere, Culibao just kind of lands a jab, which kind of sent Melsik slipping, and Joshua just jumped on the opportunity. He got to the... He got back control, and then just snatched his neck in real quick time. Locked in a rear naked choke before we knew what was happening, and Melsik was tapping. Really nice win here. I did say there would be a finish in this one, but unfortunately for me, I called it on the wrong side. Melsik was dominating the fight up until he suddenly wasn't. So yeah, Culibao locked in a rear naked choke. And yeah, this took me to 4-3. Again, shouldn't be the record I'm carrying based on the first fight. But yeah, really nice win. Felt like I really needed to win the next fight though. And I really wanted to have a winning record going into the main card. Because at that point I'm thinking I've picked so many underdogs in the main card that I may end with a negative record if things carry the way they are. Right, so... yeah, as you can see here, this did not go my way. Now, this was the main event of the prelims, and a tricky one due to the injury record of both men. I took Pedro to win this one. I figured he would land a TKO, but I had no expectations for this to go the distance, and I was totally wrong from the offset. This was a difficult fight to watch, and honestly, either man could have got the decision here, and not for good reasons. This one really sucked the air out of the room. Pedro got a nice takedown in the first, had some good clinch control, hitting knees, and this seemed like a really good strategy and a clear first round for Pedro. But at the end of the round, he looked so gassed, which is just really embarrassing at this level. Really slow second round, really hard one to call. If I'm being honest with myself, I'd probably edge Bukauskas, who was looking a little busier, but it was close. Then Pedro got some control time in the third with the clinch, looking up, landing knees, nothing too significant. I didn't see how you could really score this one for Modescus, but I guess he did finish stronger, so I guess you could give it to him. This was a horrible fight. Now, as you can see, it was called as a unanimous decision win for Modescus. I can't really complain, to be honest. They were both dreadful and it could have gone either way. I can't make a strong case for either one, to be honest. You know, Modescus is a fellow Brit. He's had a horrific time with injuries and stuff. So to be able to come back, I'm pretty happy for the guy. It did leave me with a horrible 4-4 record at the end of the prelims. So at that point, I'm thinking hopefully I can pick it up on the main card, which you can go to now. It's already been uploaded. So yeah, thanks for tuning into the prelims. It wasn't exactly the most exciting prelim cards, but you know, I was fairly confident that the main card would pick up the pace. So yeah, head over to see my main card video and I'll see you in a bit.